Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are in Leadville, Colorado on this beautiful sunny day, and we're going to be checking out the National Mining Hall of Fame and Museum. Now I'm super excited because the Leadville area actually has a pretty cool history and lots of neat spaces to explore. In fact, this is only one of the stops along the scenic and historic walking tour that you can take through downtown that I'll show you in just a minute. Let's go inside and check it out. Okay, adventurers, we have made it inside, and oh my goodness, I am so excited. I have a little map here, and there are so many floors to this that we're going to be exploring for a little bit. But I was told to start with the red carpet. So here we are in the Matchless Mine area. Now the Matchless Mine is actually something that is here in Leadville that you can go and actually tour. So everything that we see in here is going to be related to that really cool place that you can also go to. In fact, as soon as we come in the door, there's actually a little brochure, which I think I'm going to grab one of. It's going to tell us a little bit more about the mine if we decide to go and explore it. That's pretty cool. Now here, the first exhibit we have is actually an engraved silver candlestick holder and a pickaxe that was made for Horace Tabor by his personal blacksmith, H Gregory. Now, why are these names important? Well, because Mr. Tabor was actually the guy who struck it rich here in Leadville. In fact, you can't go through Leadville without seeing the Tabor name. There are multiple buildings in the downtown, all named after Mr. Tabor. And so, as you kind of walk through and do the historic tour of downtown, you see his name everywhere. But this puts into context as to why. In fact, there is a small portion right here that actually talks about the mine, the myth, and the legend, and the rush for the riches that ensued here in Leadville. Horace, Augusta, and their young son actually came from Kansas to Colorado during the 1850s. He was here during the Pikes Peak Gold Rush. Now this, in the middle right here, is actually Mr. Horace Tabor, but there is actually a torrid past that he also belongs to. Now, Tabor went on to strike it rich here like we talked about, and then went on to actually serve in government. Whenever he did, him and his wife actually kind of relocated to the Denver area, but he would come back and forth. That is whenever he met a divorced woman and started to have this torrid love affair. And it's kind of interesting because when you think of all of the mines and things like that, you don't think about that side, but it really was kind of like a modern day soap opera at the time. And so kind of interesting. So two women, Tabor, and you might have noticed on the actual brochure that it was called the Matchless Mine and Baby Doe's Cabin. Well, the other woman was Baby Doe. Now, it was said that after the Colorado and Southern Railway actually made a line near the Matchless Mine, then transportation of ore became much more efficient, and they amped up the production even more. Here you can see an electric tram hauling some of the men and some of the ore from that Matchless Mine. Now this is what it might have looked like to be in that mine. You'll notice all of these timber structures, and these timber structures were actually used to hold up various portions while they continued to dig in. It was said that in its heyday that the Matchless actually produced an average of 70 to 100 ounces of silver to the ton, and this continued to add to the profit margins of Tabor. Now, in addition, Tabor continued to up the ante by bringing in new technology constantly. So, for example, he brought in one of the first telephones to this area, which is really insane to think that in the 1800s, he was able to conduct business via the phone. You know, I mean, that's how we do it every day now. But this is one of the many things that he would introduce, which continued to forward his wealth onward and upward throughout the years. Here we can also see some of the many, many things that these men would have used while they were in the mines. It is all sorts of different kinds of things, from hand drills to air drills. They have a cage that goes up and down, which we've seen at some of the other places. And then you can also see what they call timbering in here. Lots of different kinds of things would go into just getting into the mines and making them efficient. Now, eventually, the United States did go over to the gold standard, which meant that the silver that they were pulling out here was less valuable. However, they were still able to keep it going and profitable until about the 30s. So that's kind of interesting to see. It kind of started to peter out after that, but Leadville was already written in stone as a historic site at that point. But the story does not end there. In fact, it gets even more juicy. Horace passed away and was very, very ill. And at this point, he had basically run through a lot of his fortune. And Baby Doe was mourning the loss of her husband that she cared about so much, to the point that some think it made her go a little crazy. She actually pulled herself back from society that she had known, that she had extravagantly lived in, and opted to live as a hermit in a small cabin at the now defunct Matchless Mine. She lived there until her passing. She actually passed away many years later and had a heart attack, and her neighbor discovered her because her chimney was not blowing smoke. When her neighbor came into the home, they realized that she had died and she was now frozen. It's pretty sad. Now, Horace and Baby Doe did have 2 daughters, and those daughters, one of which left very early on. She just couldn't take it. She was seeing her mother in decline, but at the same time couldn't really do anything about it, and they were pretty much penniless. The other one went on to be a wild woman and follow in Baby Doe's footsteps, perusing around with men that maybe she shouldn't have, and eventually went off to Chicago, where she became a burlesque dancer and died under mysterious circumstances. It's kind of a sad story, but it's also, like this video over here says, it's the story of America, where you live your life the way you choose to live it, and for some reason, you know, we are the victim of our own circumstances sometimes. Down this hall, we see a mining state of mind. And whenever they say state, they mean literally the states. Here it talks about how every single state in the United States has some kind of mining going on at any given time. And down this hall, we can go find all the different states and see what's going on in each one of those. Now, if you've been with my channel very long, you know I'm from Texas, and Texas is known for cement, coal, lime, sandstone, and uranium. Isn't uranium the really scary thing? I think it is. Figures. Oh my goodness, what is in here? Okay, we made it inside, and oh my gosh, look at this. These are actually rocks that glow in the dark under this black light. Isn't this insane looking? These are so, so cool. Now, both of these can actually be found right here in Colorado, and there are little signs in front of us and then also behind us showing kind of where. For example, the quartz is actually from around the Telluride area, and we were just there, so that's really, really neat. It says here that before the mine closed in 1979, that the Idorado mine actually was the home of this piece of quartz right here. It's real, guys. Now let's look at it one more time here. It says that this quartz was actually extracted from a fish shoe that was found 30 feet above the tunnel floor. And then this was the Eagle Mine outside of Gilman, which is just a little bit north of Aspen. And it says that the pyrite that we're seeing on this wall right here was actually located on one of the bottom levels of the mine. And Jack Murphy of the Denver Museum of National History actually went on a trip to the mine and was given permission to extract it. So maybe you can see now from the things that we're looking at why this place was actually, of all the places on TripAdvisor, rated as one of the top rated places to come, not only just in Colorado, but in the world, to see things like this. It's pretty spectacular. And to know that this one area is coated by things that were found in two separate mines that are so vastly different, but so amazing. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, guys. You have to come here. It's so cool. But it just keeps going and going. There's actually more and more. Every time that I turn a corner, I see something else that's unique and interesting. Like all of this art. There's art throughout the entirety of the museum, and it's amazing. But not only that, they actually have classes here so that you can learn how to do some of the techniques that are seen in some of these amazing portraits and paintings and things like that. It's really cool. This thing is huge. I'm just going to say that. It is 2,155 pounds. And it came from the Brushy Creek Mine in 1995. Now, this is coming from Missouri all the way to Colorado to be in this museum. This is awesome. And this is actually a model of the Mina, or Mine de Reyes, and that is located in Mexico. So again, this isn't just a Colorado museum. This is a worldwide museum where you can come in and see so many amazing things that have to do with the mines and the miners who have made it so special. Okay, it is time for us to go this way. I am very excited about this because this looks kind of like a rocket. But what does a rocket have to do with a mining museum? What would you say if I told you that astronauts were a miner of sorts? Would you believe me? Well, they kind of are, because astronauts went to the moon and they pulled back all of these specimens, which are technically geology. And geology is technically also what makes up mining. It's all one and the same. So astronauts are the space miners. I know it's a weird thing to think, but in reality they are. They've gone out and they've explored these different places and they've brought back these precious things that now we can study and look at. So this room kind of makes sense now. See right here, he's actually collecting some specimens. And then look at these. Look at these. What are these? A closer look at the labels, and each of these are actually meteorites. So we learned something different about where they came from, what they were constructed out of, why they were dense, why they came all the way through our atmosphere and made it. Each of these pieces tells us something about places that we haven't been before. And if you think about it, that's what miners do. They actually go to places that we haven't been before, and they pull out things. And then we learn about them. Some of those things have a great value, others not so much, but we still learn a little bit more about this planet that we live on with each individual excavation underground. So this is a really cool way to kind of relate the two in a way that I kind of understand better now and I hadn't ever thought about. Now we're going to floor 2. This is a 5-floor museum though, so we have quite a ways to go throughout getting all of the displays. And as the door opens, wow, we are greeted by this bright light coming in through the front doors and this massive staircase that we could go up to this sculpture up here, but instead we're going to start by going this way. In this room we find a collection that is amazing. That's all I can say about that. Just seeing the sheer size of some of these pieces, awesome. Now these pieces right here all come from Arizona in the Bisbee area. And as you can see, they're quite large and in charge and so beautiful. Like the coloration is so vivid, so bright, so amazing. And then up above, we have a couple of photos of what the mines in that area might have looked like. Now I've never been down to Bisbee, but everybody says it's very nice. And if things like this are coming out of the ground, I might have to visit. Now these are actually quartz crystals, and the title here says a diamond, and it actually explains that they're not really diamonds, that they're actually crystals, and then where they were found, which is actually kind of neat. I like to see the stories behind all of these little fine gems that we see in front of us. Now if you're new to my channel, you may not have seen it before, but I've actually gone mining before. I went to a place called the Salt Plains in Oklahoma, and we pulled out salt crystals or selenite crystals, which was kind of cool. They don't have a lot of value, but at the same time it's a really fun experience. But you can go to places like Arkansas and actually go to a real diamond mine. That is quite a treat. I've done that too, and it's on one of my older videos, so go check it out. Speaking of selenite, oh my goodness. I wish I could have found something this big. This is actually called Fishtail Selenite. It is huge. Now along these cases right here, you have all sorts of amazing finds from around the world, and each one of them actually has a map and then also some numbers to tell you which one in a corresponding text, where they're from, what they're called, and their value and importance. I think that's really, really neat because it allows you to see things from across the world this way and not just here in the US. Again, the reason why this museum is much different than some of the others. And the maps are also color-coded, so you can actually go and find the region specifically on the corresponding piece. So, for example, all of the green is from Madagascar, and that is the little island that's over here. So we can find 36 through 43 there. So then we go and find the numbers. So all of these right here are from Madagascar. And this one has to be one of my favorites. Oh my gosh, it's so cool looking. And this one is actually from China. Now I've made it to the portion that talks about the United States and breaks it down state by state. And let me show you some of the things that have come from right here in Colorado. And then I'm going to show you Texas just because, well, Texas holds a special place in my heart. So right here is the Colorado list, and there are 62 items, all from Colorado. And they're going to be found in these first few shelves right here. So as you can see, lots of different things, but let me show you a few of my favorites. Now this color right here just really calls out to me, and these are actually called Amazonite, A-M-A-Z-O-N-I-T-E, Amazonite. And I really like this one because the more that you look at it, it kind of shifts in color. So it's got a color shift going. And no, it's not a piece of gold. It's actually something called, it's number 4 up here, Maracasite. Now, despite the fact that I really like looking at what it is that we're seeing here, I am not the greatest with their names. So if you are a geologist, please don't cringe. Please, please don't cringe. Okay, now we have a few from Texas. We're looking at 66 through 69 and then number 74. So that's going to be down here on the bottom. Now, I thought that this number 68 looked pretty cool, but in reality, it's actually what they call native sulfur core. So it probably doesn't smell the best, but it looks really neat. And again, I could sit here and show you each and every one of these pieces, but there's so many of them and they're so amazing that it would take all day just to show this one gallery, so you have to come out and see it yourself. But I do want to show you one last one because it just kind of caught my eye. This one right here, I don't know what about it that just drew me to it, but it kind of looks like it has grass on it. It's kind of neat, but it's very vivid. The coloration is really amazing, and it's actually from Mexico. Now let's continue on with the remainder of not only this room, but the rest of this floor. There's a lot to cover here. So many neat things, including this car right here. Now, a closer look at this car. It's a 1923 Wills St. Clair, and it was considered to be a classic automobile that was produced between 1921 and 1926. They were the first company, Wills St. Clair was, to actually use molybdenum steel in the construction of their vehicles. So that's why it's important. That's kind of neat. And the pieces that they actually used to create this were actually mined at the Climax mine. So that's another neat little fact. Check that one off the list. It's really cool how each place that we go has kind of like an interconnecting piece, and that is one of them for us today, the Climax mine right there. Okay, so growing up, I was always taught it was molybdenum. Molybdenum. It's always how we said it. It's what I learned in all of my schooling. It wasn't until right now, this very day, that I see the correct pronunciation. Now, am I going to unlearn that sound in my mind? Probably not. And again, I'm super sorry if you're a geologist and sensitive to the namings, because they taught me this way, guys. But molybdenum. Molybdenum. Is that right? I still like molybdenum. Now, the real question is not how to pronounce it. It is where is it found? And you can see right here in the United States that it is all along the western portion, and then just one tiny little dot there in Canada. So whenever we look down here, we can actually see the mine sites that they have, and you can kind of look at them and see what they look like in current day. And it's really neat because, as you can see, each one of them looks slightly different from the other. There's no exact way that a mine is constructed and looks. Oh, scratch that about Canada. It's actually a defunct mine. It hasn't been there in quite some time. Okay, guys, we have some interactive pieces here too, which is really cool. And it asks, if you were a prospector, which one of these would you pick? Now, if you're at home, which one would you pick? I'm going to lift each one of them so that you can see what you picked. But we have this nice, shiny looking one right here that's kind of larger. We have this one that has some of the little striations in it, which is kind of cool. And then we have this one, which is smaller, but also kind of shiny, but in a different way. So if you picked number 1, it says that we found pyrite. So it says that it looks like gold, but it is much lighter, it is harder, and it is more brittle. So we didn't find gold there. What about this one? We found our molybdenum. Yep, we're still going to say it that way, guys. It's just kind of how it's going to happen. But it says that it actually breaks off in soft, flexible flakes. Now, last but not least, did you choose this one? If you did, you found Galena. And that's what we found downstairs too, that huge, like 2,500 pound piece. It says here that it actually has cube-like faces. So you can kind of see it whenever we get closer, kind of cube-like. Okay, so these are some of the frequently asked questions, and we can touch on any of these and find our answers. So let's go see how it is used currently. Okay, they actually use it to make semiconductors. Yeah, we use those literally every day for pretty much everything, including our cell phones. It says flat screen computers and monitors and televisions. Okay, what else? Hybrid cars commonly use them for transistor power modules. CAT scans and X-ray machines. Whoa. Solar panels like the one that I carry with me every single adventure. Wow. And then fuel cell storage. That's amazing. And then space telescopes. Future spaceships may actually be powered by ion thrusters using this. And then back to the beginning. So in conclusion, this entire area that talks about molybdenum, yes, is actually one of the most profound moments in discovery potentially for mining. We couldn't live without it. The camera that I'm using to film this, the cell phone that I use to find all the cool places, my laptop, most of my van probably, definitely my solar panel. All the things that bring about these adventures are actually spawned bound by finding this discovery and using it. That is crazy. The impact of one thing can literally change the world. This is cool. You actually spin the dial to change the channel on the TV.
For anybody, the children that were in there, they had to be home by 9 o'clock.
If you were 3 minutes or 5 minutes after 9 p.m., which was the curfew, the guards usually either followed you home or asked to give you a...
And that display actually allows you to turn the channel, and whenever you do, you listen to the different stories from the climax area. So that's cool. So all of this relates back to that climax mine. And that is so neat. This entire room is filled with amazingness that you wouldn't ever think connects point A to point B to point C back to point A, but it totally does. Every single exhibit. So neat. Now, passing next to this hall, we see all of the different variations of lighting in the mines. It starts out from the very beginning and comes to the more modern day. Wow, a lot of iterations. That's all I can say about that. Time for us to go up, up, up again. Next floor and more exciting things. I wonder what's on the next floor. I should look at my map, but instead I think we're just going to be surprised. We are now in the room of dioramas, and there are so many neat little intricate details, so I want to show you a few of them. First, the railway. So much detail in this tiny little railway, really neat to watch, and you can push a button and it starts to move around, so that's kind of cool too. But this railway is not like your typical railway. It actually has a mine on this side right here. It's kind of hard to see with the glare, but you can see right through this area right here, that's actually a mining tunnel. Now, the reason why this diorama is pretty important to this area specifically is that without the railroad, the mining industry would have never been able to have the impact that it did. So this is what you might have seen around Leadville whenever you first came here during the heyday of all the mining. It's pretty neat. But there's another one that is definitely a signature Leadville moment, and it's called the Ice Castle, and it's called the Ice Palace. Now, after looking at the model, you can see this photo, which is an actual photo of the Ice Palace. And the Ice Palace was located on the West 400 block between 7th and 8th Streets. This was a real place, guys. And it was considered to be the largest ice palace that was built, measuring 450 feet long and 320 feet wide. Now, inside of this was actually located a 16,000-foot skating rink, like ice skating rink. Pretty cool, right? And when I say ice, I actually mean ice. Ice. Like this was ice, and they gathered it from many different places. But the neatest thing about this, I think, in my opinion, is they started it in November and couldn't open it until New Year's Day because it took so long to build. There's actually an illustration right here of what that might have looked like. Huge chunks of ice. It's kind of like the modern day ice castles that people go when they visit, and then they get to stay there and they have to wear those big furry coats and stuff. But this was here in Colorado. I never knew this existed. This is so cool. And if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about this, you can pause to read this little sign right here. But just know that 250 to 350 workmen worked day and night to make this happen, all during November and December. And again, look at the diorama. It is amazing. Oh, but the dioramas only started Now we have a whole room filled with amazing things thanks to the adventure in history. Now inside this room there are 27 dioramas that were actually dedicated to the museum only a few days before the artist passed away. So they're very special, and I can see why. Just seeing them from across the room, the details are amazing and the figures look very lifelike. Now a little story about this artist. His name was Hank Ginch, and he actually had an automobile accident that left him fully paralyzed from the waist down, but he still had use of his arms, and he was determined to make the most of this. So he decided to start doing something he had never done before, and he taught himself wood carving. And from there he created these amazing dioramas that are spectacular to see, to say the least. Now he did go on to have a partner later on, Joe McPhee, and they worked together for many years to make this possible. And after 22 years they finally retired, but not without leaving behind an amazing legacy that we can now see today. In addition to the dioramas, there is actually a book that goes along with this. And the book is pretty neat as well. If you're interested in checking out that book, it is called Adventure in History, The Central City Story, and it actually goes hand in hand with the dioramas that we are seeing. Now with each piece of the diorama, we have a title and then also a little synopsis of what's going on, and then most of them also have some kind of infographic or photo beside it. So that's kind of what we're looking at with that. So as you come here, you can actually read, learn, and then look at all of this hard work. It is amazing. This is so spectacular. The details, the paint, every single piece of it so lifelike. And now we enter into the blacksmith shop. Now without the blacksmith, you couldn't have had all your mining. It just wouldn't have happened. The blacksmith was one of the most important people in any early community because they developed most of the tools and most of the things people used. So we can see the blacksmith back here, and kind of as we look around the room, there's some other really neat things in here. This man behind us is actually a Hoist Man, and we've seen the Hoist Man at several different museums now, and now we kind of understand his job a little bit better. He actually was the one who was in charge of bringing things in and out of the mine, and without him and his system of bells, it would have never gotten done. Now, the bell system was kind of interesting because depending on how many bells he would hear, he would know if it was equipment or people who were coming up and down. So he sat here all by himself, and that's what he did all shift long. And this is what it would have looked like to be in that hoist. And then there are tracks running out of the hoist because they would actually wheel in carts in order to take them down. So it's a little dark through here, and this is not a handicap accessible route, but it says to follow the tracks. So that's what we're doing. Along the tracks we find stops like this that actually talk about the different pieces of equipment that we're seeing and also what it was like to work in the mine. And wow, this is so cool. This is awesome. I would have never expected this at this museum. This is amazing. Wow. Just kind of winding our way through here. Oh wow. Look at all of the plug holes. It looks like they're getting ready to blow a hole. And we learned in Creed that they would actually do this formation of the 4 and leave 1 in the middle because that would actually directionalize the hole. So, see, it pays to go to all of these places. All of them kind of work together and tell you the bigger picture. It's kind of dark in this area, but this is another hoist right here, and there's actually like a one-man hoist, and it kind of goes at an angle upward. That that doesn't look like it would be a fun little tiny hole to go through. Nope. And then we emerge from the mine into another gallery. Wow, this place is expansive. I can definitely see why it comes so highly acclaimed. Definitely so much detail in each and every place. And even though some of the things that you find here are a lot of reading, like these cases right here, a lot of reading, the places that you can go through and actually interact make it worth reading so that you understand all the context. It's so neat. Now in this section we're learning about John H. Gregory, and he was actually one of the first people to make a discovery of gold in the Pikes Peak Gold Rush. This is one of the quotes that he had. In the 3 weeks we have been here, there have been some 3,000 persons arrive. And they have built cabins in every nook and corner within 5 or 6 miles of us in every direction. So once there was a discovery of gold in them there hills, everybody literally packed up everything they had and came out west in hopes of finding their fame and fortune. And along the way, we have seen many towns that have popped up and then fallen back into nothingness as a result of the bust. So it's kind of interesting to come and see one of the first men to actually stake his claim here. I'm sure he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm just positive. Now this map right here shows all of the gold fields of the United States, and that's going to even include some on the eastern portion. However, over here, notice Colorado is just dotted with them. And this area that we're in right now, this was the main hub for all of the gold. Did you know that there are more ghost towns in Colorado and California than in any other state? And it is a result of these gold rushes. So basically people would move in and, like I said, assemble a city and then tear it back down as soon as they didn't find what they were looking for. So Colorado and California are the places that you want to go if you want to see some ghost towns. It's a really cool kind of bucket list kind of thing to do, but let's go on. Now again, in this entire section you can read more in detail about the gold rush, the ghost towns, the remains of what happened after, and see some really, really neat things like this. This is called Little Johnny. Little Johnny is one of the highlights of the museum, and it's actually a specimen of native gold that was recovered from a muck car. So this little piece right here has an undetermined numeric value that we will not be discussing in this video, but just know, Little Johnny is pretty spectacular at 24 ounces. Okay, now we've moved out of gold, let's talk about coal. Coal is kind of the opposite, but we've been to some coal mines before and checked them out. Remember Rocky Top? That was a coal mine. So let's go check out a few of the other things that they have to say about coal mining. Now, as you can see, there are two types of coal mines. There are surface coal mines and underground coal mines, and most of them are kind of in the same areas. So when we were over at Rocky Top, we were over in this region right here, which is dense coal country. They have what is called the coal mine portal, and through here we can walk in and discover what it is like to be in the coal mines. Wow, another amazing display. This is spectacular. Within this single building, there are so many unique things to see, and each one of them is motion censored, so it has sound, and it gives you a good visual of what it would have been like to be in each one of these situations and scenarios. This is so well done. It's a little darker in here, of course, but as you see, this is one of the mules that they would have used to pull the carts. We learned in Creed that this is how they started out, and then they went on to start doing things by machines instead because it was more efficient. But you can see each one of the men has on his little light. This guy that we're looking at right now actually has a candle on his hat, but there are some regular lights and lanterns as well. And then, wow, this is just so neat. Even the walls even look real. This is so interesting to see. You know how sometimes you come to a place and you kind of have in your mind an idea of what you might be seeing? Never did I expect all of this. I intentionally did not look up pictures online before coming because I wanted to be surprised, but no way possible did I know that this was going to be this detailed. This is so amazing. But now it's time for us to move into yet another exhibit. And this one talks about all of the different implementations and uses of minerals and things that you can find through mining. And some of these things are going to blow you away. I think this is great. Digger Badger welcomes you to tour this very open house where you can see some of the important ways we use industrial minerals in our everyday lives. And then you can actually walk into portions of the home and it tells you what kind of things are used, where they came from, and why it's important that we know that. So let's go into what I think is like the shop area first. We have some latex enamel, some roof cement, we have some caulking, just normal things that you might find in your garage. And it says here in items like these right here that it actually uses several minerals in ceramic-based products, which include all of these right here. So without the discovery, without the mining, you wouldn't be able to have these basic things that you use probably pretty often in your home. Now let's move into the bathroom area. So in the bathroom area, we wouldn't have a sink unless we had all of these things because it is made out of several different items that are found by mining and industry. And then let's open this. It says open the door to see more. Oh wow, common things that you use in your home: soaps, toothpaste, shaving cream, all use different items that are found as a result of mining. So, for example, soaps and facial masks use kaolin clay to absorb the moisture. That's kind of neat. But look at this. Toothpaste would contain so many things. So something we use literally every day, we wouldn't even have if it weren't for mining. So earlier we talked about all the technology that I use to bring these videos to you. My cell phone, my camera, my laptop, my van, all of those used it. Now I know that everything else that's inside of the van that I use for day-to-day life, like my creature comforts, my comforter, my bed, even the construction materials themselves, all have to do with mining. So without this industry, we would be absolutely nowhere. And despite all of the things that we usually don't know about it, this kind of fills in a lot of those blanks. Okay, here we go. 5th floor, here we come. It is in this section of the museum that we can see 253 Hall of Fame inductees along these walls. And each one of them has a special plaque with their photo and a little bit of information about them. So let's go find a few of the stories that we have to tell here. Now, amongst these walls of amazing people who are being recognized, you'll find some that actually say immigrant on them. And I think that that's really fascinating, that these people who came possibly from nothing to make their fame and fortune here in the States actually made their mark, not only a little bit, but enough to make them one of the best of the best. And so it's pretty neat to see all of these. Overhead in the Hall of Fame, we see beautiful murals that depict the different landscapes that these people might have worked amongst. In the Leadville area, some of the other places. It's just beautiful in here. And then remember that first gallery that we went through talking about the Tabors? Well, here is Miss Augusta. She was the first woman at the California Gulch District. She was known as the First Lady of Leadville. And she was the main reason why Leadville became the Leadville that it is today. With all the drama aside, this woman right here, she definitely deserves to be on these walls. And this woman right here. Her name might look a little familiar. It's because she was actually married to Herbert Hoover, the President of the United States. But her merits of just being a wife weren't what got her here. No, it was actually much bigger. She was actually a geologist. She was a scholar. And she had a great scientific work that related back to all of the things that we've seen today. And we couldn't leave the Hall of Fame without stopping off at Mr. Horace Tabor, the man who started off this entire journey today with his discovery and his ultimate love affair. He is considered to be one of the most famous men in all of Colorado mining history. And here he is, right here. Mr. Francis Marion Smith. He was actually known as the Borax King. And I think that's why there's a box of borax here. And this lady right here hits pretty close to home. Gertrude Sober. She was actually called the Queen of the Arbuckles. She discovered the Southwest Davis zinc fields in Oklahoma, which is very close to many of the places that we have been and visited. I hope you have enjoyed coming with me to the National Mining Hall of Fame and Museum. I have had a wonderful time sharing this location with you all. It has been so insightful and so amazing, and I definitely am glad that we came out to Leadville today. If you have enjoyed it, make sure that you leave a thumbs up, hit the subscribe, and leave a comment if you come and visit yourself. I love to hear your stories, and I hope to hear many, many, many from this particular location. Till next time, guys. Bye.